Learn how to build a better sign and print shop from a few crusty sign guys who've made more mistakes than they care to admit. Conversations and advice on pricing, sales, marketing, workflow, growth, and more. You're listening to the Better Sign Shop Podcast with your hosts, Peter Kourounis, Michael Riley, and Bryant Gillespie.
Bum, bum, bum. We are back. Welcome to yet another episode of the Better Sign Shop Podcast. I'm your host, Bryant Gillespie. It has been literally too many minutes. Of course, I'm here with my co-host, Michael Riley, the sign burrito, the sign therapy guru. How are you, Mike? Good to see you, dude.
I'm good. Been a while. How are you?
I am. Like looking out the window here, I am snowed in. I've got 6 inches of snow outside. We've been in the winter storm of the decade. Apparently, the good news is we did not lose power at all. So my wife stayed very happy over the last week.
I was going to ask if you got to use that new generator you bought.
Still in the box, I did not. It's still in the box. Hopefully, I can take it back. Yeah, you never know with Harbor Freight. We'll see how it goes.
Just what you wanted to spend your money on, right?
Exactly right. Well, what else has been going on with you, man? You and I have stayed in touch, but obviously we've not done a podcast episode. I don't know, since it's been May since I've done a podcast episode. I don't even think you joined us on that one. Let's talk about what we've been up to.
Yeah, it's been over a year since I've been on one. Yeah, well, my business has been a little, I guess I'll call it on hold here lately. Had a lot of family issues in the last year that I've been dealing with. My father passed away early last year and spent a lot of time back and forth between Oregon and Ohio. And then my mom sold her house and she has recently moved in with my wife and I, and that's been interesting. We kind of sort of like having a 75-year-old toddler running around your house that you can't control and thinks they know everything.
I can only imagine, man. I mean, I've seen the pictures. So.
Yeah. Yes, in the span of a month and a half, I think we've made 7 trips to the emergency room. She's had 2 strokes, several major falls. So I've kind of transitioned from being a business owner and sign designer full-time to a full-time caretaker and part-time, very part-time sign designer, trying to get back into it, but it's been a long year for sure. So I'm definitely excited to be back in the seat here and talking about shop a little bit.
Yeah, man. That's a lot to go through. And I can't imagine how you're still upright after all of it. Kudos. I think some days you just don't have a choice, right? You got to get up and keep going, however you feel anyway.
We're gonna do it. Yeah, that's life. I mean, I'm thankful for, on one hand, the opportunity to have my mom with us and take care of her, and she obviously did that for me when I was a kid, and payback is a bitch, I guess.
Is it were you like a shithead? Is it like teenager or something, or what, man?
Well, yeah, wasn't everybody, a shithead when they were kids? I mean, no, I think for all intents and purposes, I was a pretty decent kid, but I'm still, I think that she still owes me a few gray hairs. You're asking how my beard is so gray. That's partly why. But no, I mean, honestly, it is kind of an honor to, be able to do that for your parents and be part of it. But, yeah, I mean, we've got a decent sized house, but so did she. So I spent the whole year remodeling, an apartment for her in our house. So she's got her own entrance and bathroom and everything. And then I had to build basically a small barn in our backyard for all of her crap. So it's been kind of nonstop construction and traveling, and my eye's been off the ball, and I've been out of the game here for a little bit. It's time to get back into it.
This is good to have you back, and maybe we could change the nickname to Mike the Tool Man Riley or something.
Sounds good to me.
Do you know I like tool time?
I don't want to be a burrito anymore.
Yeah, man. Well, anyway, like on my side of it, I'm not sure if we talked about it on the podcast or not, but obviously, I have not been working with too many clients on the sign shop side here lately. We were doing a ton of like business management software or shop management software consulting. We kind of tailed off of that, and for the last couple of years, I've been working full time for a software company called Directus. It has nothing to do with the sign industry, which is it's a nice change of pace sometimes, right?
Lucky you.
The other side of it, and we've talked about it before, you can't get this industry out of your blood. So anything that I learn on that side of the table, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, how can I take this and apply it to the sign industry? And I've been heavily involved in some AI projects on that side of it, which is very exciting. We've got some stuff that we're going to talk about coming up, but it is, you can't get this industry out of your blood. And I'm like to the point again now where I'm ready to, like you, man, I'm ready to dive back into this, and we want to restart the podcast. We want to restart the newsletter, and we want to take, you and I have both over the last 6 months have just been locked into this hold my beer AI thing. I want to teach people about that. I want to, apply some of it, what we've learned to the sign industry, and hopefully help some folks along the way. But also just get back into talking shop. That's my favorite part of this podcast, and I've really missed that. Just connecting with shop owners, and I won't say reminiscing, but yeah, it is kind of that way.
That's the only way, guys like us who don't actually work in a shop anymore. It's the only way we can connect back to our roots, really, and feel like we're still in the industry, is talk to the guys that actually do it every day. So.
All right. After a brief interruption by a tiny co-host, we're back. What were we even talking about, Mike? What we've been up
you were
to?
talking about AI and what you've been up to with AI and sharing that with people, and just excited to be back in the driver's seat.
Yeah. So it's official. We are restarting the podcast and the newsletter. That's exciting. The newsletter is going to go out every Saturday. I chose Saturdays because it is also a nice time for me to write in the mornings. So if you don't like Saturdays, hey, wait till the week, read the newsletter that's coming out. The podcast, we were looking for more shop owners to interview. If you've got an interesting story, I can't tell you how many shop owners we've interviewed where there's been like a shop fire in the picture. I guess we could do more of those. That would probably be interesting. But, if you've got other interesting stories, hey, how you grew your business, what you started from, we would love to chat with you. If that's you, or if that's one of your friends, shoot us an email at hey@bettersignshop.com and let us know more about your shop, and tell us a bit about your story. We'll probably fire back a couple questions, maybe get you on a quick call, and then you could be on the next episode of the Better Sign Shop podcast. But the other thing that we've been working on since we're transitioning, right, is something exciting. What do you think, Mike? How much should we spill the beans on what we've been working on?
I think you should spill the beans a little bit. It's pretty cool because you guys want to see.
We've been very quiet, and I don't want anybody to mistake that for like, hey, we're leaving the sign industry or we've not been operating, because behind the scenes for, I don't know, how long has it been now? At least 6 months. We have been working on a new software project, which is It's kind of hard to describe on first take, but it's essentially a website platform and a lightweight CRM for your sign shop. A lot of shop owners that we've talked to, the breakdown it seems to be in the communication side with the customers, and most. I won't get into that because we're going to save that to the end. But a lot of websites are really bad. And with AI and everything else that is, progressing in the industry, if your website is not professional, if it doesn't have the right information, you are going to get crushed on the marketing side because these AI agents like OpenAI, Claude, all of these things are searching your website. All these different crawlers are ending up on your website. And if you don't have both the technical side of it and the user experience side of it nailed down, you are losing money for sure. But we're very excited about that project. We've got probably a few more weeks before we do any large announcement about it. But if you want to be involved, you want to be someone who is testing that platform, you want to help us mold it, help us shape it, again, definitely reach out to us. Hey, at Better Sign Shop, just mention you heard it on the podcast, and we'd love to chat with you. All right, I see you've muted yourself. I don't know why. It just doesn't have any more to say, Mike. What's up?
It's going to be cool. I can't wait to see some of the reactions to this. It's got a long way to go before I think it's ready for prime time, but the progress that you made on it so far is really impressive. And I think when people in the industry see this, it's going to I think it's going to blow some minds. It's definitely leaps and bounds different and better than anything else that I think we've seen on the market so far. Obviously, Bryant and I have been in the software side of the industry for a long time, and
too many
we've seen some
hours,
shit.
too many years.
Yeah. So, we've seen the good and the bad, and I'd say we probably have a pretty solid barometer on what's going to be an effective tool for this industry. And I'm excited to get it out there and see what people think about it.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't dive into like a 2-hour spiel today. Let's go to the mailbag because we've got some questions that readers or listeners, I guess we should say, have submitted to us. It's been a minute since we've done one of these episodes where we've answered some user questions. So
yeah,
let's talk about it. The first one on the list, and this is one that I picked out specifically for you because you've wore a lot of different hats in this industry compared to me. Janet Kramberger from SJ Graphics Corporation. Janet, thanks for listening. Her question is, how do you keep your energy up after reinventing yourself over and over again? I don't even know that that's a sign question, but that's a good question for you, Mike.
I think that's just a life question or, an adult question. And I'm honestly not sure I know the answer to it. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I've worn a lot of hats in this industry, and
yeah, I mean, let's talk me through your journey. Yeah, that's why I thought this was a good question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on a family-owned golf course. That's my parents owned a golf course when I was a kid, and I was just kind of always artsy fartsy, and I ended up we did a lot of golf outings, so I started making all the golf hole sponsor signs and welcome banners just as kind of like a value-added service for the outings, and ended up really enjoying it. They sold the golf course, and I went to work for a little mom and pop, vinyl shop, and then ended up buying that one and growing it and then selling it and then going to work for several other large sign companies. And now I'm just an independent sign designer. So, and throughout that, I've worn every conceivable, hat in the industry and done just about every role. Yeah, I don't know that you have to necessarily reinvent yourself.
Yeah. But what were the shifts for you throughout so you started as like lowly low man on the totem pole at mom and pop shop, moved up, bought. Did you buy the same mom and pop shop?
Yeah, just bought it outright. I mean, they were small, and it's not like I paid a lot of money for it or anything. It was a computer and a plotter and a little bit of inventory and a customer list, but it was a starting point. It was a seed. I had to learn how to go from being a low man on the totem pole, final slinger, to the guy at the top of the totem pole who is also a final slinger and toilet cleaner and pays the bills and everything else. So, yeah. I don't know if it's a reinvention or if it's just an evolution of what you do and who you are. I mean, over time, you definitely have to step into roles that you're not overly comfortable with, and definitely, you're not going to be in business and be a business owner and not be in very uncomfortable places and out of your element, for sure. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is, if you want to be successful, you just have to get over it. And so you overcome a lot of those fears and anxieties. And I think that, you become more confident and capable just by having to go out there and put yourself in the middle of it, because it's not optional, But as far as reinvention,
I mean, do you think energy plays a factor in it? Like, of all the roles that you've had, right? I guess energy could be like two different ways here. Hey, how did you have energy to make it through the day? Or like, is there something that, like, did one role energize you over the other? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's
I don't know what's the unfortunately, this is all we've got from Janet. So Janet, when you write the next question, we love you, but give us more context on the next one for sure.
I mean, the energy thing. I mean, if you're talking about physical energy, I think you just manifest it from the universe. It's one of those things, again, just like, if you want to be successful in business, you just have to do it. And it's almost like you dissociate yourself with how exhausted you are and how sore you are and how much you don't want to get up at 4 a.m. and go dig post holes today. You just kind of have to do it. I think that, especially starting a business like the sign industry, it's fairly physical and if you're owning a sign shop, you're probably not sitting behind a desk all day long. So it's not a young man's game. That's for sure. I mean, it's not an old man's game. It's a young man's game for sure. It's something that you need to have that physical energy. I don't think I could do it. I'm 45 now. I don't think I could do it again, nor would I want to. But I think, I think you get a little bit of success and something works and you land that next big client and you're proud of the work you do. I think that kind of like just is constantly giving you just that little push to keep going, to keep pushing through the exhaustion, and that builds energy. And I think that, if you're going to start a business, whether it's this industry or anything, you have to really love what you do and you have to be passionate about it. And I think as long as 100%. You maintain that, if you maintain that passion, then I think you'll have the energy there for it. You'll find it or you'll create it. But if you lose the passion for it, I think I don't think you can make that energy up from nothing. It has to come from that.
Yeah, I think it's more of like you don't even give yourself an option, right? Like, if you think of it like, some days I get up and like my latest morning routine, and like I'm trying to get back into this habit after having very bad habits of, like, I get up, have a cold cup of water, a little bit of creatine in it, go downstairs in the basement in the quiet, do some stretching, and then just immediately row for as long as I can, for as hard as I can. And like when I first started doing it, it was like this negotiation with myself of like, okay, man, like, you've not done this in a while. It's going to hurt. Like, do you really want to do this? And now it's just like, I just I've been able to put that aside and just be like, okay, like there's no negotiations. Like you're just going to go do this. I don't care how bad you hurt or whether you've torn your ACL, which I have. I've got a complete tear of my ACL right now, and I keep putting off surgery. But it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, like it's not even a question. It's just like, hey, you got to get up and keep doing it. And it's something more than energy has to drive you, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've known a lot of people that have gotten into business and then, fairly promptly got back out of business because they had all the energy in the world, but it wasn't the right kind of energy, or it wasn't directed, or it wasn't coming from the right place. So it's not just energy alone that gets you through. I mean, in fact, I'd say that's probably one of the smaller factors in it. I mean, humans are pretty resilient, and we can push ourselves to extremes if we have to. It's just part of our fight or flight mechanism. And I think that when you own a business, you kind of get into that fight or flight mode as well. And to be successful, you have to be in fight mode. And in order to be in fight mode, you've got to love what you're doing. If you don't love it, you've probably all been there too. It's a tough industry. We all want to run sometimes. I don't know. I don't really, I feel like I'm letting you in
like, as you were transitioning, was there ever like did energy ever come up, or was it like, how did you, I don't know, man. Like, as you moved from one to the other, like, what were your thoughts? Like, what were you, what did that feel like? Was there like one role that you've done that felt better or felt like it energized you more than the others? I think you and I have had conversations before where it was like, I could do the business owner thing, but it really wasn't me deep down.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think, and I've talked about this a little bit in the past on the podcast too. Burnout and, work-life balance is something that's obviously very, very important to me. And the reason for that is because I hit a wall, the burnout wall at like 100 miles an hour. And, you go so hard for so long trying to start a business and make it successful, that passion, is what drives you, even if your tank is running on empty and you don't have any energy left. And eventually, if you're running on fumes like that, you will hit a wall and burn out no matter what. So I think that, like I said, I mean, you have to do what you enjoy. And like you said, like you and I both kind of agree that the business side of it wasn't really our passion. We didn't love it. It really drained, for me anyway, it definitely drained my energy. That was the business operations side of thing, managing employees and paying the bills and dealing with all that crap. It didn't excite me. I didn't like doing it, which made me dread it, which drained my energy, which, forced you into a burnout situation. So probably like one of the keys, if not the key to keeping up your energy, is just making sure that you put yourself in a role that is good for you, the right fit for you, and is fulfilling for you. I think one of the biggest mistakes that small business owners make is they think that because they're the owner, they're the one that has to run the business. And I definitely fell into that trap. This is my business, therefore I have to be the manager. I have to clean the toilets. I have to pay the bills. And you didn't get in the business to do that stuff. You got in the business to make signs, right? So it's the same thing that we always talk about. Like, do you want to work in the business or on the business, right? And if working in the business is what makes you happy, then that's what you should do. If working on the business is what makes you happy, that's what you should do. But I don't think you're going to, manifest some infinite source of energy if you're trying to do a role,
things.
That just aren't right for you. And it's okay to admit, hey, I suck at this and I don't want to do this role. Bookkeeping is the worst thing in the world. So I'm going to delegate that, and I'm going to put my energy into something that's more fulfilling.
Yeah. And even in the case where it's like you don't have the money to pay somebody else to do it, right? That it certainly forces hard decisions where, like, my advice in that is just like, you got to do it anyway. Like, we got to figure out, like, can we raise prices by X% to eke out some profitability? Or, if you look at it and you say, okay, like, I'm taking $100,000 out of the business, and a manager or operations manager is going to cost me a large portion of that salary. Like, is that worth it to me as a business owner? Is it worth it to my life goals? Is it worth trading? Are you trading the time for the money? And for some people it may be. At this stage of my life, I'm like, how can I get more time back? And if it's reasonable and I can afford it without going broke, I'm of the camp of like, okay, yeah, let's pay for it and be done with it. Versus let me take something else on. Firm believer that, like you said, you don't have an infinite energy. There's not some infinite well that never runs dry. So you're borrowing, and then it eventually catches up with you. So, at some point you got to put something else down before you can pick something up.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's probably the best, most succinct way to answer her question is what you just said. You have to put something else down before you can pick something else up. Otherwise, you're carrying too much and you're going to run out of energy. But small business owners are notoriously bad at delegating. Most of us got into owning a small business because we don't like to be told what to do. We want to be in charge. We want to be the boss. And so we have it in our minds that that's what we have to do. And I mean, it's scary when you own a business and you delegate away one of those tasks that in your brain is like, this is something I have to do, like bookkeeping or whatever, it's terrifying. In a way, it can make you feel like you're a bad business owner or a failure. Like I should be able to do this. This should be something that's in my job description, and it shouldn't piss me off the way that it does, and yet it still does. And that's just a sign that you shouldn't, if at all possible, you should delegate it, get it off your plate, and focus that energy, because that energy is turning into negative energy now. You're forcing yourself to do something that, and I'm talking obviously if your business is at a point where you can afford and justify hiring somebody. Obviously, if you're just starting out and you're only making, $50,000 a year in revenue, you're not going to be able to afford to hire a full-time accountant. Assuming that you're at a place where you have some, budget to play with, and you're trying to decide, what do I hire another production employee, or do I hire another office employee? Factor yourself into that, and factor your own energy and passion into that, and hire the person to do the things that you don't want to do or that you're not good at, so that you can gain some efficiency. The whole hustle culture phenomenon that I think has finally died out, but for a long time, it was sort of like just the unspoken rule of being in small business that if you're not doing everything, or if you're delegating some of the business management tasks away and you're actually doing the work, you're making the widgets versus you're running the business, for such a long time. I mean, that was demonized, and it was, I think it created a whole lot of business owners out there that genuinely believe that they can't do what they want in their own business, that they have to do all the stuff that they don't want. And by delegating some of that away, they're a failure. Yeah. And I think that's
handcuffs.
I think that's insane. Like, you got into business because you're good at something, you're passionate about something, and you wanted to do something different your own way. So why do you care what other people think about what you're doing within your business? Delegate what you don't want to do. Like, it's not that big a deal. You'll be happier, you'll have more energy, and you'll have a more successful business if you do. That's the perk of being the boss, is you don't have to be the accountant if you don't want to be.
Yeah. Keep me away from the books. I mean, that kind of leads into one of the other mailbag questions that we had here. I feel like mailbag is a terrible name for this session, by the way. But anyway, okay, this is from Dave from Anonymous Sign Company. Look, anonymous questions are fine, but we'd like to know who we're talking to. So Dave, he asks, how can I tell whether I'm burnt out from the sign industry or just bored? You were just talking about burnout, so I'll give you first crack at this one.
What's the difference between burnout and boredom? I mean, I kind of feel like they're two sides of the same coin in a way, like they're not quite the same, I guess, but they're very similar. I think that if you're forcing yourself to do the wrong things for too long, or you're just pushing yourself too hard, you're going to burn out. But I think a lot of that burnout is probably also boredom. I mean, it's not a stretch to say that most business owners, we like to have our hands in a lot of things. We like to do a lot of things. We like to, we hyper focus on something. We want it to be, perfect, or we want to, whatever it is. We're tinkerers. It's kind of our nature, especially in this industry. And if you, just like what I was saying before, if you remove yourself from the stuff in the, in your business that you really enjoy, you're going to get bored, and that boredom is going to lead to burnout. I think I've been there for sure. Doing accounting is boring, and it leads to burnout. So I think it's super important that you do the fun stuff. You reserve the fun stuff for yourself as the business owner. I mean, it's your business. You have that right. And that's the stuff that keeps you going. That's the stuff that makes you want to get up in the morning and go get the shit kicked out of you again today, and do it over and over every day for years and years and years.
That's a good way to put it. Like, and what drives you enough to wake up and get the shit kicked out of you every day that you would still do that?
Wow. Really, that's what it is. I mean, it is like stepping into a, cage fighting, ring or something. Like, it's kind of how it feels to be a small business owner. It's like, where's the next roundhouse kick to the face going to come from? So, yeah, if you're not super excited about what you're doing, if you're not doing that fun stuff, at least some of it, like, and all you're dealing with is the shift, of course you're going to get bored with it and burnt out, and you're going to stop caring, and you're going to fail. It's not failure. It's just so. But I don't understand that mentality. I mean, I've seen so many business owners that actually, like, they carry real guilt for delegating some of that stuff and not doing it. And it's just such a bizarre thing to me. I don't know where it comes from.
Shit, man. I take on way too much. This. I think when I look at burnout, right, it is, and somebody like recently phrased it to me this way, like burnout happens when there's a lack of hope about the future, right? Because, if you go back to when you were first grinding it out, and, again, hey, like we both hate like the hustle culture, but you could wake up every day and you could go and do it, and you were excited to do it because you had like this goal you were trying to attain, or like you knew, hey, like I'm growing, I'm learning new things every day. But the difference between that and burnout, just like really hard work and burnout, is there's a lack of hope of like, okay, hey, now I'm stuck. I'm still pulling the same 60-hour weeks, but like I can't find any good help. Our margins are down because the guy down the street opened up and started undercutting us. Inflation's up, right? I think, and that's a good way to frame it. I think of like, okay, it's just like, hey, I don't have any hope. And in that moment, right, you've got to do what? You've got to take a step back and like examine what you're doing, and take a hard look at it of like, do I want to continue doing this, right? And in your case, it was like, hey, I got to sell this business before it like consumes me, and I got to do something else. And then of course you still found your way back to this industry. But the other, like anytime I've burnt out, or it felt like I've approached burnout, it's been the same sort of thing where like I'm not growing anymore. It feels like you're stuck in place and you're doing the same thing. And conventional wisdom says,
boredom.
Like, hey, don't do the same thing every day and expect different results. We just settle into habits and cycles, and sometimes it's hard to break. But I guess in that respect, it could be boredom, right? Where it's just, hey, I'm no longer learning anything. And again, in that moment, it's very hard because it's hard to give up on something, or I won't say give up, right? It's hard to shift away from something that you've poured so much of yourself into and do something different, right? Not knowing what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a sense of failure that you're going to feel if you do that. I think it's just natural because it's not the outcome that you envisioned when you started off on that path. Choosing to change paths and do something different isn't failure. It's the opposite of failure. If you stay on a path that isn't working for you, that boredom and burnout is going to just get worse and worse and worse until you really do totally fail. And, the wheels are going to come off of it eventually. I mean, you can't sustain running a business that you're just miserable running for whatever reason. And I think too, something that I felt, and I don't know if everybody else or other people feel this or not, but I'm the type of person that I need some sort of sense of, like, a tangible sense of accomplishment. I need to step back at the end of the day. Like I mentioned earlier, I grew up on a golf course, and I hate golf, by the way. I don't play golf. It's the worst fucking sport ever.
Maybe the most frustrating sport ever.
Yeah, no, I can drive a ball 400 yards dead straight. Like, I'm a great golfer, but I hate it. I hate golf. I hate golfers. I hate everything about it. But I was out mowing fairways when I was 12 years old on a big Parkmaster reel fairway mower, and that's how I learned to drive, was on a fairway mower. And even back then, I can vividly remember as a 12-year-old, like, stepping off my tractor and looking at that fairway that's perfectly striped, beautiful, and thinking, yeah, I'm proud of that. That's awesome. And then when you get into owning a business and you start taking on all those business ownership roles, like accounting or management, all that stuff, you can't step back at the end of the day and look and say, yep, I managed the hell out of that. Man, I really did those books today. Like, it's just not how it works.
You were such a great leader today. You led the shit out of the team.
Exactly right. Like, it's just comical to think about, but that's, for me, and I have to assume that a lot of people, at least in this industry, are similar in that they got into it because they like to make stuff. And we've talked about that before. Like, we like to make stuff. We want to make cool shit. That's why we got into it. That's why, we both kind of pivoting in this software direction and because it's just, we get to make stuff. Like, I love going to IKEA because I get to build stuff. It's like adult Legos, like, anytime I can do something and I can stand back and say, that's awesome. Whether it's I built that, whether I mowed that, whether I made that sign, the sense of accomplishment that you get, I think, is something that really will continue to push you forward more and more as a business owner. And so if you're bored and if you're doing the stuff that you don't get that sense of accomplishment from ever, your brain is going to reject that entirely. And it's going to fight back against that. So I think that's really, like, super important. Don't make yourself a martyr at the expense of your, right, for your business. And you started it because you liked to do something and you wanted a certain outcome and you wanted a certain feeling from doing that thing. And the farther you get from that, the more miserable you're going to be as a business owner. So I think that's, I don't know. It's easy to say that looking with, hindsight, a 30-year career, but when you're in the trenches,
it sucks.
Yeah, and you don't have the money to pay somebody to do it. I mean, I realize I'm speaking from a point of, we'll call it privilege here, I guess. But
already been through it. Yeah, it's like, hey, what would put yourself back into the middle of it, right? What would you say to somebody that is stuck and they're like, okay, I don't have the money to hire somebody to take off some of this from my plate so I can do something else or do what I need to do?
It's tough. I mean, you kind of got to knuckle under, and that's when the whole dissociation thing comes into play, and you kind of have to but you got to find a way to do those things that make you happy too. I mean, if having to do the accounting and stuff is unavoidable and it has to land in your lap, okay, so be it. That's the sacrifice that you make when you start a small business. Is buck stops with you eventually, and if there is nobody else, it does come to you. But you have to backfill that with the rewarding stuff as well. You can't not do that. You have to figure out how to do it, and it's hard. And sometimes there's not enough time in the day to do it. But if you're at that point where, you need to hire more help and you got all this on your plate and you can't do it, but there's no money to get from point A to point B, you really need to step back and take a look at your business at that point, because there's probably something else that's wrong there. Because theoretically, if you're this busy, you should be able to at least get some part-time help in there with some money. So if your margins are so razor slim that you can't, you're working yourself to death, but there's nothing at the end of the day, I think there's, that's a totally different discussion. But
get yourself out of the environment for a day. Get out of the shop for a day, take a hike, do something, something to get yourself in a different state of mind, and just, come up with a few ideas of what you can do. Right. Certainly if there's, like you said, if there's no other option, like there's no money, like you don't have any ideas, like at least start taking care of yourself so that you've got some kind of balance, right, where you can weather the storm. But certainly, that's business ownership. You got to look at it right in the face and you got to say, okay, I've got to make some hard changes. And whether that's, and let's call on that customer that we have that I think we could do more business with, and just put it all on the line and say, okay, hey, I want this and this and this, and here's what we could do for you, and I will deliver, and that sort of thing. But certainly there's a way out. So don't feel discouraged, Dave. And don't be anonymous next time, Dave. All right. Last question from the mailbag, which we're going to change the name for the next episode. Should we stick to trade only and supply to sign shops only and market that exclusively, or sell to anyone that wants a sign? This is from Simon Clark at KF Plastics. Simon, thank you for writing in. Great question. I think we could probably go the reverse route on this as well. I've seen lots of shops that do retail and have asked about trade only. But this is also something that you got a little taste for back in your shop, Mike. So I'll toss it to you.
Yeah. I sold my shop. We're going on 13 years ago now, I think. So the industry's changed a bit since then, but back when I had my shop 15, 18 years ago, really when we were doing a lot of wholesale work, everybody and their brother didn't have a wide format printer and a flatbed printer. Digital printing was common, but it wasn't as commoditized as it is now. So there was a market for quality, affordable wholesale printing. And for me, it was a way to keep my machines running. I load them up with rolls of vinyl at night, go home, come out in the morning, and they're ready to laminate, whatever. It worked well, but as time has gone on, like I said, the cost of entry to get into, I'm talking digital printing, but it could be anything, obviously. The cost of entry into that stuff is lower, and there are more and more wholesalers out there that are extremely capable, and they always have more equipment than you, and faster equipment, and more employees, and they can outproduce you if they want. So it's a hard one to be in now, is wholesaling. There's been a huge trend in the last few years in the industry, and everybody that I talk to is moving in this direction. A lot of my clients are doing this. People are moving away from doing production entirely and strictly doing sales, design, installation, project management,
It only makes sense, man. If I had to go back, if somebody was like, here's $100,000, you've got to start a sign shop and run it today. I would totally invest $100,000 in marketing, and I would not buy a single piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I just would not, because the wholesalers out there now, you look at some of the big ones, like B2B Sign or B2 Sign or Signs 365, or just these guys that you can pull up and order a print off of. And that's not to mention like the other like cabinet manufacturers or channel letter manufacturers that are out there. Like there's tons of great suppliers, and they're easier than ever to find as well. It just doesn't make sense to, in most cases, right? It doesn't make sense to take on that overhead, that debt, that whatever, unless you've got so much business that it is a safe play, and you're going to, you're going to leverage the margin that you're going to gain by pulling it in house. But it's just, it seems foolish now to do a lot of production work.
I mean, obviously we're talking about kind of like more commoditized type.
Certainly.
And not super high end custom stuff. I mean, if you're doing a really high end stuff, you kind of got to do production in house to have total control over it. And that's a bit different. But I mean, I'm assuming Simon, is talking about something that's more like wide format, digital, laser cutting. He says KF Plat. I don't know what his company does. But, yeah, I would have a hard time suggesting any smaller shop pursue any sort of trade only wholesale work right now. Because it's so saturated. There are so many great vendors out there that I can't imagine being able to compete with them very well, either on cost or turnaround time, honestly.
So it's basically like if you're a retail shop, stay away from offering wholesale.
If you're a retail shop, there's probably the chances of you having the kind of firepower in your production facility to be able to compete with any of those big guys out there is slim. I don't see how it would be a wise use of your effort, to do versus trying to, get more local, quote unquote, retail clients that, are willing to pay top dollar for good work. Margins are higher. That's the other thing, is it's competitive. Like, wholesale work is competitive as hell. It's easier to do because you're just taking, files from people that theoretically know what they're doing, and you kind of sidestep much of the, the sales process with it. But, again, it's commoditized, so that people, assuming that your quality is acceptable and what it should be, which quality is not a differentiator anymore. It's the expectation. It's the baseline. So assuming your quality is on point and your customer service is on point, the only thing that you can compete on is price. And like, who wants to do that? That's a race to the bottom, right?
It is. Yeah. That's the way I look at it. Right. And like,
unless you're huge and you're a factory, like Thrine's 365, then it's not a race to the bottom because it's volume. The average retail sign shop is not in the commodity volume printing business, even though they have the equipment.
Yeah. Yeah. And at that point, you really have to have your systems dialed in. And that's like, I've seen folks that get themselves into trouble, especially like when you look at it like square foot based pricing of like, well, we can get X price per square foot wholesale. That's pretty good. But they're not factoring in the overhead. They're not factoring in the opportunity cost as well, right? Of, hey, if I've got my printer tied up for 5 hours printing something at $3 a square foot, and I've got several jobs that we're printing that we're selling at $12 a square foot. Again, just simplifying, right? The opportunity cost there is huge. It's crazy.
Right.
All right. So back to Simon's question. He's trade only currently. Should he sell to anybody that wants a sign? I mean, it's tough without knowing context about the business, but let's assume it's a solid business, but we want to, I'm assuming they want to grow, and, maybe right now their distributors that they're working with, sign shops maybe they're not buying enough. I don't know. It's impossible to know what the context is, but is it a good idea or not? Put you on the hot seat.
Obviously, if he's trade only right now, and he goes full retail to anybody, he's going to alienate probably quite a few of his wholesale customers. A lot of
That's the immediate downside, right?
Yeah, it is and it isn't. Like I was the same. For me, wholesale work was just something to keep the machines running. In between higher profit jobs, but it's I don't. I think he runs the risk of making one group there unhappy. I don't know which one it would be, but I think he's probably going to drive away some of his wholesale clients. I think he'll have a harder time servicing retail clients if his wholesale clients are putting pressure on him, which they will, because that's all of his business right now. He's going to have a hard time balancing the two if he does both. That's speaking from experience. You've got wholesale customers that they need their work now, and it's lower margin. But you've also got retail clients that are higher margin. They need it now, but you'll probably never hear from them again. So it's like, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place all the time with scheduling and prioritizing. So I feel like it's a risky move. Again, if I were him, I would get out of wholesale entirely, not knowing his business at all. But it's the direction that I would probably try and move into, and just shift into, sales and marketing and customer service and design and differentiate yourself that way versus.
It's a tough one to recommend, right? Just not knowing the additional context. I think
I'd love to get Simon on a call and actually pick his brain and like,
Simon, if you listen, we would love to get you on a call. It doesn't have to be on the podcast. We'd love to talk through it, man. Looking at it, it's hard to say one way or the other. I think it depends on. If it were me and I was weighing these two, I would look at how prepared are we for the retail side. Right. You've got, if I've already got salespeople that are managing the wholesale accounts, or, is it just like inside sales reps who take orders from these folks? Right. With the retail side of it, it's a bit different. There's overhead in the sales process and there's more time involved there. Do you have access to the customers that you want to sell to on the retail side of it? Is it going to be easy to market to those folks? Do you know who they are? Those are the sorts of things that I would think about, and then obviously if you trade now, like if you squeezed all you can on that side of it, right? Are you very well known? Like, do all the shops in the area use you, or all the shops in your market use you? Why or why not? There's lots of different things to dig into before I would make a decision on it. So, Simon, thanks for the question. It's a great one. Again, we'll be happy to jump on a call with you. All right. We're closing in on an hour. I think we wanted to end this with some spicy takes. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first.
Put me on the spicy hot seat. All right. So today's spicy hot take, and this one is near and dear to my heart, and Mike, you'll know why. Most sign shop websites, look, guys, I mean, no offense, but your sign shop websites, they are embarrassing. It's costing you real money as well. In this day and age, your website, it's your online sales rep 24/7. And now I'm not here to tell you that you need some fancy design, but you do need a website. It needs to clearly state what you do, what the value proposition of working with you is, and you need examples of your work so that you look reputable when somebody visits the website. Also, as I talked about at the beginning of this, you need to have all the different products you service, or the products that you sell, whatever you make in-house, you need those listed on the website. You probably want different pages for those. And the reason why is, in the age of AI, OpenAI, Anthropic, all of these AI companies, all their scrapers are visiting your site. They are scraping that information from your site, and then they are using that information to synthesize and answer for a potential customer. So, you want to focus on the SEO side of things, because a lot of these models do not have you in their training data, or if they do, it's way deep in there and it's not going to come up. And, so somebody searches best sign shops in my area, Google will, in the past, has shown you like a list of sign shops in that area. They've almost across the board rolled out their AI overview that will now give summaries of these things. And where do you think they're pulling the information for those summaries? From your website. OpenAI and ChatGPT and all these other things are doing the same exact thing, where they are, indexing the internet, indexing the search results. And when it comes up, they're taking that information that's on your website and they are synthesizing it to that user. So if you don't have a website, you're screwed. Let's just admit that. That's it. First thing today, go buy a domain, get your website up, like a Facebook profile, just an Instagram account. And I've seen some of you folks. This is tough love. Go out, get the website up right now. I don't care if you're a one-man shop. Get a website up, get some examples of your work, clearly state what you sell, what locations do you service, what areas do you work in, get your address on there, get your own faces on there, so that I know I'm not dealing with some faceless entity. And then last but not least, put some examples of your work, maybe some happy customers, do some case studies. That's the other side effect. Like, hey, I want to know that other people have worked with you before. Your work examples are crucial for that. But that's my rant. I don't know. Did I miss anything?
No, I think, I think we could, go into this topic extremely deeply. Maybe we should at some point. But no, I think you hit the nail on the head there for sure. Just to maybe to add on to that, one of my pet peeves with sign shops that I see a lot, and I talk about this before too, is a lot of sign shop owners. I think they fundamentally mistake the industry that we are in, and their value proposition, on their website is selling materials and paint and, LEDs or whatever it may be. And they focus on what the client doesn't care about. The client cares about outcome, right? And a lot of sign shops forget that the client isn't coming to them to buy materials. They're not coming to them to buy fabrication services. They're not coming to them to buy
even a sign, right?
A sign, right? Yeah, they're coming to them because they need an outcome, and they're looking for a professional to give them that outcome. And ultimately, we are in the marketing industry. We're in the front lines of the marketing industry at that. And a lot of sign shop owners I think they don't want to admit that to themselves, and they have it very, very much in their head that they're in the materials industry. And so, to piggyback on what you said, they'll just put a website up that talks about signs and materials and quality, right. It needs to talk about what value you bring. What are you going to do for that client's business? What is the outcome that using you is going to provide over shucking a truck down the street? That's it. It has to be the right website, not just a website, I guess is what I'm saying. And it has to speak to your clientele correctly, not what you want to say, but what they need to hear. And then I think,
That's
small
a good
business
way to
owners,
phrase it.
yeah, we as small business owners, I think we get so stuck in our heads that, this is the way I see my business. Therefore, this is how I'm going to market it to the world, and this is how they're going to see it. But, we have tunnel vision, and we're stuck, deep on the inside of it. And from a marketing standpoint, our clients don't see the business the same way we do. So we can't sell it to them. We can't market it to them the same way. So that website, has to be more than just these are the materials we use. These are, it has to be results driven. It has to be outcome driven.
100% agree. And if you are looking for a website or you're thinking about revamping your website, hire a professional, please. Like, you are not a website designer. You sell signs. I know they are adjacent, and I know you can get pretty far with AI tools or Wix or Webflow or whatever, right? The cost of you doing that, I promise you, like, the opportunity cost of you taking a detour to really build the website that you need is way higher than hiring someone to do this for you. If you need advice, totally free, hit us up. We will give you some free advice on your website. We'd be happy to take a look at it and give you like a tear down. We could do that in private as well, so nobody gets embarrassed. That's my rant. Mike, what is the soapbox you're going to step up on today with your spicy take?
My spicy take is the big red flag that we treat our employees like family. I think probably...
You didn't say it right. We treat our employees like family.
Like family. We've all said it, right? I have.
With good intentions, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not saying that like you're a horrible person for making this claim. And I would go so far as to say we genuinely believe it when we make that claim, right? Because that's what we and I think that's partly because as a sign shop owner or small business owner, like, your employees kind of become your family because you're there so much. You see them way more than your own family. So in your mind, they kind of are a family. But yeah, that's a big red flag. And your employees are not your family. And they're not there because they love you and are obligated to. They're there to make money. They're there for a paycheck, period.
The same.
And I think that employers, business owners, they owe it to themselves, not just their employees, but they owe it to themselves to like be honest about that and say, look, we may all get along great. Maybe we're even friends. And if you want to call them use the term family, we can do that, but let's not pretend it's anything other than a transactional relationship at the end of the day. You give me labor, I give you money. And everything has to be framed around that. And I think the more you tread into that mentality,
wrong expectations on it, things will go south.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a hell of a lot harder to fire a family member than it is an employee, speaking from experience. The more you start seeing them like family, the harder it becomes to manage them. The more those boundaries are blurred, the more they will start acting like family and taking advantage and not seeing it as the transactional relationship that it is. That, the money that they get back is directly proportionate to the effort that they put in. So I think it's a slippery slope. I think it's disingenuous to employees and to yourself. And I think that employers would do better by their employees by just being honest and saying, this is why you're here. This is why I need you here. This is how the relationship is going to be. Nothing wrong with having fun. I'm not saying that, but I think that falling into that mentality of family it's risky for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it's a loaded thing to like place those expectations, right? Because like when I think of family, outside of my immediate family, like my wife and my kids, like, there's some dysfunction there, right? So like immediately, like, and I don't know, I could talk to 10 friends and there would be some dysfunction in, some part of their family. So number one, right, you don't want to start off on that foot of like, hey, it's family. We were just fucked up. We're dysfunctional. It's cool. It's fine. I think that's certainly not a good foot to start out with, but like, it's all about boundaries and, certainly, the people higher up in your organization, there's more expectations of availability and when you're going to communicate and things like that. But, like family gives the kind of, hey, I can call you whenever I need you. Whereas, like an employee-employer relationship, like Saturdays, like time off, like shit's sacred, dude. Like don't send that communication. Even you and I both work remotely, and like Slack is the main thread that runs through. And even at my day job, working at the tech company, there's some of those messages where I'm like, I starting to send one of my direct reports, and I'm like, okay, this is like 7:00 at this time. Like we're always online. Maybe I just schedule that, right? So that's what we're saying is boundaries. Like, certainly treat your employees well. That's not what we're saying. Like,
Yeah.
like pay them well. Like, make sure that you put a culture in place for where they can grow and they can level up, and that you support them and let them make mistakes. But certainly, like pretending like your employees are family when they're not, is just a recipe for disaster, right? Better to be upfront.
Yeah, totally. And they have their own families. They don't want you. They, like they probably don't want their own family either. Like, who wants two families? What the hell? Yeah. And like I said, I mean, I think that we've all been there, and as business owners, we just fundamentally feel different about the business because it is so personal to us. So saying the word family and thinking of it like family, I think just kind of almost feels natural in a way to business owners. And I don't think most of us are fully aware of, the larger implications of that. And it's not even just saying we treat employee like family, but it's the whole mentality of it and the old culture behind it. And, again, people are there to make money and go home to their real families. If you want to go have a beer with them after work and be friends with them, that's cool. I was close with a lot of my employees, and we hung out after work, and some of them even come out here to Oregon to visit me after I moved. Family's a stretch, like,
yeah. It's just a bad expectation to set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Spicy takes out of the way. We are back in the seat, and we didn't go over 2 hours this time. So, listener, consider yourself blessed. If you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, you're a sign shop owner, maybe you're an industry supplier, maybe a wholesale manufacturer. We're looking for interesting stories, different takes. We love to interview folks and dive deep into the nuts and bolts of their business. Certainly, like, moving forward, the mental aspect of the industry of small business ownership is something that we want to focus on. Reach out to us, hey@bettersignshop.com. It's easy. Drop us an email, tell us a story, and we'll get back to you. Other than that, make sure you go to the website, bettersignshop.com, get subscribed to the newsletter, to the podcast. That's a fairly simple process. And if you're a sign shop owner, we've got the Better Sign Shop community group on Facebook that you can sign up for. Just look for us there. Mike, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll
Bryant,
do this again soon.
looking forward to it.